In April 1928, actress Jacqueline Logan was photographed by Melbourne Spur for Photoplay magazine. Studio portraiture from a silent-era performer whose career peaked during the final years before sound transformed the industry. In 1927, Joan Crawford and Dorothy Sebastian were photographed together in Santa Monica, California. Two MGM contract actresses enjoying an afternoon away from the studio in the company of someone who understood exactly what their shared professional world demanded. In 1928, William Haynes and Marion Davies appeared together in Show People, a behind-the-scenes Hollywood comedy that gave Davies one of her best opportunities to demonstrate the natural comedic gift that her patron William Randolph Hearst consistently underutilized. In 1922, beachgoers crowded the shore at Canvey Island in Essex, English seaside leisure documented during the interwar years when coastal resort culture was among the most accessible forms of holiday available to working-class British families. In 1957, Marilyn Monroe was photographed during the middle years of her career, an image from a period when she was simultaneously one of the world's most photographed women and one of its most genuinely compelling dramatic actresses. In 1959, Diana Dors was photographed during her years as Britain's most prominent blonde bombshell, a performer whose combination of physical presence and genuine wit made her a distinctive and often underestimated entertainment figure. In the 1970s, Italian actress Silvia Dionisio was photographed during a period when she was building a significant career in the popular genre films that dominated Italian cinema of the decade. In the 1960s, Jane Mansfield was photographed during the years when she was navigating the difficult balance between the theatrical persona she had built and the serious actress she was working to be recognized as. In 1966, Sharon Tate was photographed 3 years before her murder, a young actress with genuine talent and warmth, whose life was cut short in one of the most shocking crimes of the 20th century. In 1995, Alicia Silverstone was photographed during the year her career reached a new peak, a young actress whose combination of natural charisma and perfect comic timing made her one of the decade's most instantly recognizable faces. A collection of photographs commemorates the particular visual atmosphere of June 1976, a specific month 50 years ago that carried its own distinct cultural texture, fashion sensibility, and set of public moments. In 1953, Sophia Loren was photographed practicing her dancing while her sister played piano, a private domestic moment revealing the warmth and playfulness that existed behind one of cinema's most glamorous public images. In 1958, a young Bruce Lee was photographed with his dance partner, years before his martial arts career made him internationally famous. Lee had been a skilled competitive dancer and a genuine student of the cha-cha. In 1976, a young Angela Bassett was photographed, early images of a performer who would develop into one of American film and television's most powerful and consistently impressive dramatic presences. In 1990, a 21-year-old Jennifer Aniston attended an NBC All-Star party, a young actress at the very beginning of a career that would soon make her one of the most recognized faces on American television. In 1987, Jennifer Connelly was photographed during the early years of a career that would eventually earn her an Academy Award for one of the most emotionally demanding performances of her generation. In 1985, the audience at Wembley Stadium was photographed during Queen's legendary Live Aid performance. The crowd of approximately 72,000 people, part of a global television audience, whose reaction helped establish the concert as the defining moment of the entire event. In 1985, Val Kilmer was photographed on the set of Real Genius, a comedy film whose cult following grew steadily over the decades following its release. In 1996, Evander Holyfield defeated Mike Tyson by technical knockout, a result that shocked many observers who had underestimated the older fighter's determination and skill in what became one of boxing's most celebrated upsets. In 1990, Soviet rock musician Viktor Tsoi was photographed in Paris, a musician whose influence in the late Soviet Union was so significant that his followers gathered outside his Leningrad apartment building for weeks following his death that same year. On October 14, 1964, Nikita Khrushchev was surrounded by Communist Party members in Moscow voting for his removal, a political coup conducted entirely through institutional procedure that left one of the century's most consequential leaders suddenly without power. In 1966, demonstrations by aerial gymnasts marked the opening of the World Championship for Advanced Aerobatics in Moscow, Soviet athletic achievement showcased through a precision-based sport requiring extraordinary physical control. A restored and colorized portrait of someone's great-grandfather was photographed in Chihuahua, Mexico in the 1940s. An ordinary family document transformed by modern technology into something vivid enough to close the distance of several generations. In 1994, Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise were photographed together, two of the decade's most commercially powerful film stars caught in a single frame at the height of their respective cultural visibility. In 1962, a young Mia Farrow was photographed, early images of a performer who would develop into one of cinema's most distinctive and fearlessly unconventional actresses across a career spanning 6 decades. Virginia Hall, known as the Queen of Gangster Malls in 1951, was the girlfriend of Brooklyn-born mobster Bugsy Siegel, a figure whose personal story occupied the intersection of celebrity, organized crime, and the particular glamour that post-war tabloid culture found irresistible. Around 1950, a dancer was photographed covered in gold paint, a striking theatrical image from an era when live entertainment still incorporated elaborate visual spectacle as a routine part of the performer's presentation. In the 1970s, Bob Marley was photographed with his son Ziggy, a quiet family moment from one of reggae music's most celebrated figures, whose son would go on to build his own significant musical career. In 1929, a tower constructed from seized barrels of alcohol awaited destruction during Prohibition, a visual monument to enforcement excess that inadvertently captured how futile the entire enterprise had become. In 1986, Michael J. Fox met James Cagney, a young actor at the beginning of what would become one of television and film's most beloved careers, encountering a Hollywood legend at the very end of his own. In 1953, Sophia Loren danced at home in Rome while her sister Maria played piano, a private moment of sisterly companionship between two women whose lives would each, in very different ways, become deeply connected to the world of Italian entertainment. In 1972, a young girl later known as Princess Diana was photographed with her pet guinea pig, an ordinary childhood portrait of a girl with no indication yet of the extraordinary and ultimately tragic public life that lay ahead of her. In 1941, studio executive Daryl Zanuck sent detailed production memos to director Jean Renoir during the filming of Swamp Water, behind-the-scenes documentation of the friction between the French auteur's creative instincts and the Hollywood system's demand for efficiency. In 1973, Pam Grier starred in Coffee, a film that established her as one of American cinema's most powerful action presences and launched the blaxploitation genre's most celebrated career. In November 1978, Sybil Shepherd appeared in a television production of The Lady Vanishes, an Agatha Christie adaptation that gave the actress a chance to demonstrate her range beyond the film roles for which she had first become known. In the 1970s, actress Terry Garr was photographed during the decade when her comedic talent and natural warmth were making her one of Hollywood's most reliable and genuinely funny supporting performers. In 1971, Claudia Cardinale appeared in The Legend of Frenchie King, a Franco-Italian western that paired her with Brigitte Bardot in one of the era's more unusual and entertaining genre productions. In the 1920s, a woman sang into an early gramophone, an image of sound technology still new enough to inspire genuine wonder, the mechanical reproduction of music still carrying the quality of something miraculous. In the 1920s, the Carter family, Maybelle on guitar, AP on vocals, and Sarah also on vocals, posed in front of a Ford Model T, pioneers of country music at the very beginning of a recording career that would define an entire genre. A 1923 French publication titled Les Plus Belles Femmes de France featured elegant portrait photography, images from a cultural tradition of celebrating female beauty through the formal conventions of studio photography. John Battersby, a British sideshow performer who lived from approximately 1829 to 1897, began losing extreme amounts of weight in his teenage years. He went on to marry Hannah Perkins, a prominent plus-size performer, and the two were known for a relationship of deep mutual devotion. Francesco Lentini sold illustrated cards during his performances that contained his life story, a performer who turned his unusual physical situation into both a successful career and an opportunity to share his personal history with audiences on his own terms. Leah Schwartz, a German sideshow performer who was born in 1902 or 1913, gained nationwide attention when she sat on J.P. Morgan's lap during a publicity stunt. Her career was cut short when she and her family were murdered by the Nazis during the Second World War. Lavinia Warren was photographed in a carte de visite portrait that has been preserved in a private collection, an image of one of the 19th century's most celebrated performers, her poise and dignified bearing visible across more than a century and a half. Tom Woodbridge, known professionally as Tom Leopard, and who lived from 1928 to 2008, had nearly his entire body tattooed in a leopard print pattern after leaving military service. He spent much of his later life living quietly on the Scottish island of Skye. Rosa Leon, a Spanish-American performer who lived around 1900, worked as a half-and-half sideshow artist while also being a skilled hula dancer who enjoyed embroidering, attending baseball games, and watching boxing matches in her private life. Arthur Murphy, a Canadian performer who lived from 1867 until an unknown date, had all 4 limbs amputated at 21 following severe frostbite during an 1888 blizzard. He subsequently built a career around teaching lessons of perseverance and human capability. Sue and Kaiser were British sideshow performers who were both born with microcephaly and were promoted as sibling twins. Likely a marketing construction, the pair were reportedly devoted friends who shared a particular affection for the city of Bath. In 1895, men were photographed standing with a Texas Brewing Company wagon at the corner of 8th and Houston Streets in Fort Worth, an ordinary commercial delivery scene from one of the most rapidly growing cities in the American Southwest. In 1895, a rare snowfall covered Congress Avenue in Austin, Texas. The Travis County Courthouse visible on the left in a building that would be demolished in 1964, and the temporary state capitol on the right in one that would burn down just 4 years later. On June 6, 1929, members of the Gypsy Motorcycle Club gathered in Amarillo for their 9th annual tour, an early motorcycle enthusiast organization whose annual rides preceded the era when such groups would become a significant part of American popular culture. Around 1968, Willie Nelson was photographed performing in Goliad, Texas, a musician who was still several years away from the commercial breakthroughs that would make him one of country music's most beloved and enduring figures. On September 1, 1982, the Spirit of Texas helicopter began the first rotary wing circumnavigation of the globe, an aviation milestone achieved by a Bell 206 Long Ranger, completing a journey that would have been unimaginable to the pioneers of helicopter flight. In 1905, the small town of Shiner in Lavaca County, Texas was photographed, a community whose Czech and German immigrant heritage gave it a distinctive cultural character that has persisted well into the present day. In 1989, Kathy Ireland appeared in Sports Illustrated's swimsuit issue, a photograph that became one of the defining images of her modeling career and helped establish her as one of the publication's most recognized faces. In the late 1980s, Lenny Kravitz and Lisa Bonet were photographed together in New York City, a young musician and actress at the beginning of both their careers and their personal relationship, before either had achieved the recognition that would soon follow. The Three Stooges were photographed in one of their characteristic comic scenarios, physical comedy performed with the precise choreography of trained vaudevillians who had spent decades perfecting the art of controlled chaos. In 1948, photographer Gordon Parks captured an untitled image in Harlem, New York, one image from a career spent documenting African American life with both artistic skill and deep personal investment in the community he was portraying. A 1940s diner was photographed, an ordinary American eating establishment whose combination of counter seating, chrome fixtures, and institutional comfort food represents one of the era's most recognizable and nostalgically beloved aesthetic environments. In 1954, photographer Paolo Di Paolo captured a street scene in Milan, documentary photography from a city that was rapidly rebuilding itself into the economic and fashion capital it would become in the following decades. In 1941, photographer Vaino Canisto captured 2 boys wearing paper sacks in Helsinki, a playful childhood image from a city that was navigating the difficult years of the Second World War with a combination of resilience and everyday humor. In the 1860s, a drummer boy posed proudly for a cabinet card photograph, his cap held in his hand before a painted studio backdrop. A child soldier whose formal military posture conveyed both pride in his role and the particular gravity that formal photography of the era demanded. In the 1940s, a nurse checked on a confused baby at the Roselia Foundling Asylum and Maternity Hospital in Pittsburgh. an institutional photograph capturing the everyday work of early childhood medical care. Around 1905, a segregated schoolhouse in Summerville, South Carolina was photographed, a document of the separate and demonstrably unequal educational system that Black children in the American South were legally compelled to attend. In the 1920s and 1930s, children in costume were photographed in front of a dressmaker's home and shop in Columbia, South Carolina, a community scene that captures both the artisanal dress culture of the era and the ordinary childhood joy of wearing something special. Around 1924 and 1925, children played in the schoolyard of New Howard School in Columbia, South Carolina, an image of childhood leisure at an African American educational institution during the era of legal segregation. In 1999, Rachel Weisz appeared in The Mummy, a performance that combined genuine presence and natural humor in a blockbuster adventure film, whose entertainment value has continued to bring audiences back to it across the years. In 1935, actress Anita Louise played Titania in A Midsummer Night's Dream, a production that benefited from her ethereal quality and genuine stage presence in a role that demanded both classical grace and otherworldly lightness. On January 8, 1936, Lady Marguerite Rose Strickland was photographed by Bassano Linded, one of Britain's most prestigious portrait studios, its formal bromide prints preserving the dignity and social standing of their subjects across generations. In 1931, Greta Garbo and Clark Gable starred together in Susan Lennox, two of MGM's most magnetic performers sharing scenes in a romantic drama that brought together contrasting but equally compelling screen energies. In the days before the declaration of World War II, the Louvre Museum's art collection was evacuated to safety in the French countryside. Thousands of masterpieces, including the Mona Lisa, secretly transported away from Paris before the German advance could reach them. In 1946, Marilyn Monroe posed for a modeling photograph on Kodachrome film, color images capturing the earliest professional work of a young woman who had not yet chosen the name the world would soon recognize. In 1944 and 1945, Paul Newman served in the United States Navy, military service that interrupted his education and shaped the discipline and physical confidence that would later define his screen presence. In 1948, a woman was photographed at Coney Island Beach on Kodachrome film, a crisp color image preserving the particular quality of light and leisure on one of New York's most beloved summertime destinations. Marilyn Monroe was photographed before fame as Norma Jean Baker. Early images of a young woman whose natural beauty and instinctive relationship with the camera were already visible before the machinery of Hollywood stardom transformed her entirely. In 1945, photographer David Conover took Norma Jean Dougherty's first professional modeling photographs, a commission that had begun as a wartime morale project, but that would end by setting in motion one of entertainment history's most extraordinary careers. In 1941, Anita, June, and Helen Carter were photographed, the next generation of the Carter family musical dynasty, young women who would carry the family's country music legacy forward into the following decades. On April 5, 1946, a very young Marilyn Monroe was photographed on Kodachrome film, one of the earliest color images of a woman who had not yet become the person the world would come to know. In December 1955, Sophia Loren attended a press conference in Stockholm to promote two of her films, an Italian star taking her work to a Scandinavian market and demonstrating the international reach that her career was already beginning to develop. In the mid-1950s, two bridesmaids were photographed on a Kodachrome slide, color photography preserving the formal elegance of mid-century wedding preparation with the particular warmth that the film stock was known for producing. In 1953, Sophia Loren starred in the filmed opera Aida in what would become her first major leading role. Her voice dubbed by soprano Renata Tebaldi in a film originally offered to another Italian star. In 1963, photographer Bill Ray captured a portrait of Natalie Wood, an actress whose combination of natural beauty and genuine dramatic range had made her one of Hollywood's most consistently compelling leading women. In 1967, Cesar Romero played the Joker in the Batman television series, a performance so committed in its camp theatricality and so consistently entertaining that it remains the standard against which all subsequent interpretations are inevitably measured. In 1969, a cowgirl trio appeared in a Spiegel catalog, commercial photography, capturing the Western fashion aesthetic that mainstream American retail was incorporating into its mainstream women's lines. In 1964, Anne Margaret and Elvis Presley were photographed together during the production of Viva Las Vegas, two of the era's most dynamic performers, whose on-screen chemistry generated as much attention as the film itself. In 1977, Patricia and Cy Barnstable appeared in the science fiction comedy series Quark, twin actresses whose careers crossed through some of the decade's most distinctive and unconventional television productions. In 1984, the Ketchut Reservoir in the USSR was photographed, revealing its extraordinary star-shaped glory hole spillway, a hydraulic engineering structure whose unusual form was designed to maximize the perimeter available for water management. In 1930, Brooklyn Supreme was photographed as one of the largest horses in recorded history, standing 6.5 feet tall and weighing 3,200 pounds, a Belgian draft horse whose dimensions seemed to belong to a different scale of animal entirely. In 1975, a polar bear named Aika greeted elementary school students in Norilsk in the Russian Arctic, an extraordinary animal encounter in one of the world's most remote and challenging industrial cities. A painting by Charles H. Hubble titled "Rockets' Red Glare" depicts the first recorded use of rockets in modern warfare by Indian King Tipu Sultan during the Anglo-Mysore Wars of the 1780s, a military innovation whose influence on subsequent rocketry would eventually reach far beyond any battlefield.